I should have been more careful. Looking back, every single instinct I had was screaming at me, telling me something wasn't right. But it was late, I was exhausted, and I just wanted to get home. It happened in Texas, in the middle of summer, the kind of night where the heat still lingers in the air even after the sun has been down for hours. I had spent the evening at a friend's birthday party, a rooftop event at a bar downtown. It wasn't one of those wild, out-of-control nights. Just drinks, music, and a good mix of people. I didn't know everyone there, but I had fun. Maybe a little too much fun. By the time the party started winding down, I was feeling the effects of a few strong cocktails, not drunk, but just tipsy enough for my mind to be foggier than usual. The idea of driving home was out of the question, so I did what I always did after a night out. I ordered an Uber. As I stepped outside, the warm night air wrapped around me, heavy and humid. The streets weren't as lively as they had been earlier. A few groups lingered outside the bar, finishing conversations before heading off in different directions. Cars passed by, headlights cutting through the darkness. I pulled up the app, requested a ride, and leaned against a streetlight while I waited. A silver Toyota Camry was supposed to pick me up. Driver's name, Paul. ETA, 3 minutes. I let out a deep breath, already imagining the relief of getting home and collapsing into bed. I wasn't the kind of person who liked staying out too late, and I could feel the exhaustion creeping in now that the night was coming to an end. A few minutes later, a silver car pulled up to the curb. At first glance, it seemed right. The make and color matched what the app had said. But something about it made me pause. The headlights were glaring, making it impossible to see the driver clearly. He didn't roll down the window. Didn't wave. Just sat there, engine idling. Normally, Uber drivers confirm your name as soon as you approach. A quick, "Are you insert name?" before unlocking the door. This guy didn't say anything. A small flicker of unease crawled up my spine. Still, I was tired. Maybe he was too. Maybe he was just distracted, checking the app or finishing up another task. I took a few slow steps forward, glancing down at my phone one more time. The location matched up. It had to be him. I reached for the passenger door handle, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. As soon as I slid into the seat, a strange feeling settled over me. Not immediate panic, but something off. Like I had stepped into a space that wasn't meant for me. The air inside the car was cooler than I expected, the AC blasting on full. The scent of the vehicle was neutral, not the usual faint mix of air freshener and worn leather, but something sterile, like a rental car that had been scrubbed clean. The driver was wearing a hoodie, even though it was still hot outside. He kept his hands on the wheel, his face barely visible in the dim light from the dashboard. I cleared my throat. Paul?" He didn't answer right away. The car was already rolling forward, merging into traffic as if the confirmation wasn't necessary. After a few seconds, he finally spoke. His voice was low, rough, like he hadn't talked in a while. "You're going to Ridgewood, right?" That was my neighborhood. I nodded slowly. "Yeah." But something nagged at me. Uber drivers always confirm the passenger's name first, not just the drop-off location. I shifted in my seat, glancing at the dashboard. That's when I noticed something that sent a small ripple of unease through me. There was no GPS. No Uber app running. No phone mounted anywhere. Just the soft glow of the speedometer. For the first time since getting in the car, I felt fully awake. And something deep in my gut told me I'd just made a mistake. I tried to stay calm. Maybe he was just an old-school driver, the type who memorized routes instead of relying on GPS. But even as I told myself that, I knew it didn't feel right. Uber drivers always have their phones out. Always. I shifted slightly, reaching for my own phone like it was a lifeline. The app was still open on my screen, showing my ride details. My driver, Paul, silver Toyota Camry, was still arriving in 2 minutes. A cold wave of realization hit me. This wasn't my Uber. My throat went dry, and I stole a quick glance at the driver. His hands were tight on the wheel, fingers drumming lightly against it, as if keeping time with some silent thought. He hadn't said a word since confirming my destination. A dozen scenarios ran through my mind at once, but I forced myself to stay composed. If this guy wasn't my Uber driver, who was he? And more importantly, what did he want? I decided to play it safe. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "I think I might have gotten in the wrong car. Can we pull over for a second?" The driver didn't react at first. Then, without looking at me, he spoke, calmly. Almost too calm. "We're already on the way." His tone was dismissive, like the conversation wasn't worth having. I felt my pulse quicken. "Yeah, but I just checked my app." "My ride's still arriving," I said, pressing the issue. "This isn't my Uber." A pause. The car kept moving. I swallowed hard. The streets outside weren't familiar anymore. We had passed the main roads, turning onto a quieter stretch where the buildings were more spaced out. Fewer businesses. Fewer streetlights. Fewer people. I tried again. "Hey, can you pull over?" "I'll just..." Click. A quiet but distinct sound filled the car. I didn't have to look to know what it was. The doors had just locked. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it, the moment the situation turned from strange to dangerous. I forced myself to breathe. Panicking wouldn't help me. I needed to think. I checked my phone again, my hands shaking. The app still showed my real Uber en route. A message popped up, "Your driver has arrived." And I was nowhere near where I was supposed to be. I looked at the door handle, trying to calculate how fast I could unlock it, if I could even throw myself out without breaking something. Before I could decide, the driver did something that sent a full-body chill through me. He reached into his pocket. I tensed, bracing myself. But he didn't pull out a weapon. Not a gun. Not a knife. Instead, he pulled out a phone. A second phone. Not an Uber driver's phone, not one mounted on the dash, but a burner, cheap, disposable. He held it up, dialed a number, and without looking at me, he simply said, "I got him." Then he hung up. And kept driving. The second he said those words, "I got him," every nerve in my body went on high alert. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't some sketchy driver trying to make a few bucks off an unregistered ride. This was something else. I gripped my phone so tightly my fingers ached. I had to do something, but my mind was racing in 1,000 directions at once. The doors were locked. The streets outside were getting emptier. And whoever he had just called, they were expecting me. I forced myself to stay calm, to act normal. If I let him know I was panicking, I'd lose any chance I had of getting out of this. "Hey, man," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I think there's been a mix-up. I don't think I was supposed to get in this car." Silence. The driver didn't acknowledge me. His hand stayed on the wheel, his grip tightening slightly. His knuckles were pale under the dashboard light. I swallowed hard, forcing a small laugh. "Listen, I can pay you for the ride, no problem. Just pull over, and I'll get another Uber. No harm done." Nothing. His eyes flicked up to the rearview mirror for a brief second, locking onto mine. There was no expression on his face, no emotion in his gaze. Just calculated emptiness. A slow, sickening dread settled in my stomach. This man didn't care about money. I turned my focus back to my phone. Think. I couldn't call the police outright. If he saw me dialing 911, I had no idea how he'd react. And right now, I needed to keep control of the situation, not push him into doing something drastic. I opened my Uber app again and quickly scrolled to my real driver's profile. His name was still listed. Paul. There was an option to call him. I tapped it. The line rang once. Twice. Then, "Hey, where are you?" Paul's voice came through, slightly muffled. I've been waiting at the bar for 5 minutes. You still need a ride? I inhaled sharply. He had no idea what was happening. I forced my voice to sound normal, even though my hands were trembling. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually already in another Uber. I emphasized the word, hoping Paul would catch on. I forgot to cancel. But thanks for waiting. A beat of silence. Then Paul said, wait, if you're in an Uber, why is your ride still showing up as waiting? Smart guy. He caught it. The driver beside me didn't react. He just kept driving, like this entire conversation wasn't happening. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. Yeah, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. It's weird. He's taking a different route than I expected, but, all good. Paul was quiet for a moment, then his voice came back lower, serious. Where are you? I glanced out the window, my heart racing. Where was I? The buildings were unfamiliar now, fewer businesses, more industrial lots, and warehouses. It was a part of the city I'd never had any reason to go to before. I turned my attention to the street signs. There, Fulton Street. I was near the freeway, close to an underpass. I repeated the street name out loud, trying to sound like I was just making small talk. Yeah, we're passing Fulton now, taking the freeway. Paul's voice sharpened instantly. Dude, that's in the opposite direction of your drop-off. My pulse spiked. I already knew that, but hearing someone else confirm it made the situation even more real. Paul didn't hesitate. Listen to me. Get out of the car. I could hear the concern in his voice, but I couldn't just throw open the door while we were still moving. I had to be smart. Yeah, I said, forcing a chuckle, but hey, I'll call you when I get home, alright? A small, sharp exhale came from Paul's end. I could tell he wanted to say more, but he got the message. Alright. Stay on the line if you can. I ended the call before the driver could hear too much. The moment I slipped my phone back into my pocket, he spoke. Who was that? His voice was different now, not casual. More alert. More aware. I didn't let myself hesitate. My roommate, I lied smoothly. Just checking in on me. The driver nodded slightly, but I didn't miss the way his fingers tensed on the wheel. My heart was hammering now. I needed a way out. Fast. I looked at the door again. My seatbelt was still on. If I was going to make a move, I had to be smart about it. The car wasn't speeding, but we were getting closer to an underpass, a darker stretch of road with fewer streetlights. My window of opportunity was closing. I reached for my phone again, this time, texting Paul. 911, I'm in the wrong car. He won't stop driving. I hit send. Then I inhaled deeply. And I reached for the door handle. The moment my fingers brushed against the door handle, the driver's voice cut through the silence. Don't. It wasn't a yell. It wasn't a plea. It was a command. Cold, controlled, and filled with something that made the hairs on my arms stand up. My hand froze, my breath catching in my throat. I turned slightly, glancing at him from the corner of my eye. His grip on the steering wheel was tighter now, knuckles stretched wide, his jaw clenched. He wasn't looking at me. But he knew. Somehow, he knew exactly what I was about to do. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. The car was still moving at a steady speed, not fast enough that I couldn't jump, but fast enough that I'd probably break something if I did. I had to be smart. I had to time it perfectly. I kept my voice even, despite the rising panic in my chest. I don't know what's going on, man, but I really think I should just get out. You don't have to. The car swerved. Not a hard turn, not enough to jerk us off the road, but enough to make my stomach drop. A warning. He still didn't look at me. Sit back, he muttered, voice low. Don't make this difficult. I clenched my fists. I had no choice now. I had to act fast, before we reached that dark stretch of road up ahead, the underpass. Once we were in the shadows, out of sight from the highway, I didn't want to think about what might happen. I made my move. I yanked the door handle hard. Nothing. It didn't budge. The child safety locks. He had them on. A wave of pure, ice-cold terror shot through me. I had counted on that door opening. I had bet everything on it. The driver let out a slow breath through his nose, like he had been expecting this. "I told you," he murmured, his fingers tapping against the wheel in a slow, rhythmic pattern. "Don't make this difficult." I was trapped. No, I wasn't. I turned my attention to the window. It was still cracked open slightly, just enough to fit my fingers through. I acted before I could second-guess myself. I grabbed the edge of the glass and forced it down with everything I had, pressing my palm against the top and shoving. It slid, not easily, but enough. Enough that I could fit an arm out. Enough that I could reach for the handle outside. The driver saw. And that's when he grabbed me. His hand shot out, latching onto my wrist so hard I yelped. His grip was like a vice, crushing, unrelenting. "Stop." His voice wasn't calm anymore. It was sharp, jagged, angry. I struggled, twisting my arm, trying to break free. My pulse pounded, my lungs tight with panic. His grip dug in deeper, fingers pressing against bone. I had seconds. Just seconds before we passed the last streetlight and entered the dark stretch of road. So I did the only thing I could. I threw my head forward and bit down on his arm. Hard. He shouted, a short, sharp curse, and his grip loosened just enough. I ripped my arm free and shoved myself against the door, wedging my body halfway out the window. The wind roared in my ears as I tried to reach for the outside handle. My fingers fumbled, slipping against the cool metal. I was so close. The driver jerked the wheel. The car swerved violently. My shoulder slammed against the frame of the window, pain shooting down my side. I gasped, but I didn't stop. I lunged for the handle again. This time, my fingers found it. I yanked it with everything I had. The door flew open, and I threw myself out of the car. The moment my body left the car, everything became a blur. The asphalt rushed toward me faster than I could process. I barely had time to brace myself before I hit the ground, hard, shoulder first, then my hip, then my legs. Pain exploded through my body as I tumbled, the rough pavement scraping against my arms, tearing into my skin. I rolled several feet before coming to a stop, sprawled out on the roadside, my breath knocked clean out of my lungs. For a few horrifying seconds, I couldn't move. Everything hurt. My ribs throbbed, my palms were shredded from trying to catch myself, and my left knee was screaming in pain. But none of that mattered. I was out of the car. I was alive. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of screeching tires. He was stopping. I forced my body to move, biting down a groan of pain as I scrambled to my feet. My legs felt like jelly, shaking beneath me, but I couldn't stop. I had to get away. I looked up just in time to see his car lurch to a halt about 50 yards ahead. For a moment, nothing happened. The brake lights burned red in the darkness. Then the driver's side door swung open. I didn't wait. I turned and ran. Every step was agony, but adrenaline pushed me forward. The road was mostly empty, lined with patches of dry grass and open fields. No houses, no gas stations, just miles of darkness. I darted toward the side of the road, heart hammering, lungs burning. I needed cover. Somewhere to hide. Somewhere he couldn't follow. Behind me, I heard the sound of a car door slamming shut. He was coming. I risked a glance over my shoulder. He wasn't running after me. He was getting back into the car. A chill shot through me. If he started driving again, I didn't stand a chance. He could run me down before I even made it off the road. I had seconds before he hit the gas. Then, up ahead, I saw it. A small break in the fence on the side of the road, leading into an open field. I changed direction immediately, lunging toward the gap and diving through it. The second I crossed the fence line, my foot caught on something, and I went down again, slamming into the dirt. A car engine revved behind me. I scrambled to my knees, ignoring the pain, and threw myself into the field, stumbling into the tall grass. The uneven ground made it almost impossible to run, but I pushed forward, plunging deeper into the darkness. The car's headlights swept across the field. He was looking for me. I dropped flat to the ground, chest heaving, forcing myself to stay still. The grass around me was just high enough to offer some cover, but if he got out and started walking... I clenched my teeth, pressing my forehead into the dirt, listening. The engine idled. The headlights stayed on. I held my breath. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the car lurched forward and sped off. I stayed where I was, trembling, bleeding, barely breathing, until the sound of the engine faded into the distance. Then, and only then, did I allow myself to move. I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands, my fingers slick with sweat and dirt. Paul had texted me. "Cops are on their way. Where are you?" I forced my fingers to type. "Don't know. Somewhere past Fulton." I got out. Seconds later, another message popped up. "Stay put. I'm coming." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there in the dirt, my entire body aching, my pulse hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The night around me felt impossibly big, too dark, too quiet. Every rustling leaf, every distant car engine made my nerves snap tight. I kept expecting to see headlights turn back toward me, to hear his footsteps in the grass. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, wincing as my scraped-up palms burned. My whole body was shaking, but I forced myself to keep my phone gripped tight. Paul was coming. The police were coming. I just had to hold on a little longer. I checked the road from where I was hidden in the tall grass. Nothing. No cars, no movement. Maybe he really was gone. Or maybe he was waiting. Watching. I pushed that thought away. A few minutes passed. Then, headlights appeared in the distance. This time, it was a different car. I tensed up at first, but my phone buzzed before I could panic. "Paul, I see you. Stay there." Relief flooded through me so fast I almost felt dizzy. I pulled myself up, pain flaring in every joint, and stumbled toward the road. Paul pulled up fast, braking hard. Before I could even reach the car, he threw the door open. "Holy shit," he breathed, looking me over. "Are you okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't. He had the doors locked. He wouldn't stop the car. My voice came out raw, shaky. I had to jump out. Paul didn't hesitate. "Get in." I climbed into the passenger seat, my hands still trembling. The moment I shut the door, he peeled away from the shoulder, taking us away from that road. As soon as we were moving, Paul called the cops. "Yeah, I found him. He's banged up, but okay. The guy took off before I got here. Silver Camry. No plates." My stomach twisted at those last words. No plates. I had never checked. In my rush to get in my exhaustion, I had never once thought to look at the license plate. I had gotten into a stranger's car without question, and he had been waiting for someone to do exactly that. The cops met us at a nearby gas station. They asked 100 questions. What did he look like? What was he wearing? What direction did he drive off in? I answered the best I could, but the truth was, I never really saw him. Not fully. His hoodie had been pulled up the whole time, his face always shadowed. The only thing I remembered clearly was his hands. Long fingers, pale knuckles. The way they had tightened around the wheel when I tried to get out. They searched the area, but I already knew they wouldn't find anything. He was gone. No license plate. No Uber record. Nothing to trace. Just a silver Camry that had blended into traffic like a ghost. I never use Uber at night anymore. In the days that followed, I told myself I would feel safe again. That this was just a one-time thing. A near miss. But that feeling, the moment I realized I had gotten into the wrong car, it still lingers. I keep thinking about the way he drove at a steady pace, like he'd done it before. Like it wasn't his first time. And I wonder, who was waiting at the other end of that phone call? Who was waiting for me? I'll never know. And that's what scares me the most. If you like this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell to listen to new stories from Mr. Fear every day. Thank you for watching.